Welcome to another episode of the Pentacast Podcast. My name is Andrew Bella, your host. Alongside me is my good friend Ryan Sellers.
Good to be back.
Yes, it has been a while, several weeks since we all got together and recorded.
Yep.
Me and Josh, we were together with the Phillips recording, and
that was good.
that was an awesome
I'm telling
testimony. And you know what? Let me just say this: you can tell by the response, how many comments on Instagram, Facebook, and also just on our emails. They are really, really liked.
Yeah.
They are really honored and appreciated by a lot of people because there were so many that reached out and said, these are God-fearing people. And so now they have the story behind why they are such.
It was tremendous.
Yeah.
And Brother Phillips, you are my hero.
Yes.
I've never met you, but your goals, as the youngsters would say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he had an awesome spirit about him, and Sister Sandra, her story was awesome as well. And I thought it was incredible though. Whenever and I put a little clip of it on Instagram, Brother Timothy talking about how someone suggested that he move, start breaking some walls up and kind of rearranging to do some construction because. If his wife wasn't healed or God wasn't going to help her, it looked exactly like that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And he had enough faith to go, no, not right now.
Yeah.
Not right now.
He said, I knew that they were right.
Yeah. Yeah,
I knew they were right, but not yet.
Absolutely.
One thing that he said, I was riding down the road listening to it and had the phone to my ear so I could hear it.
Awesome.
And one thing that he said, it was at the beginning of it, when everything had just fallen apart and she moved her toe. He said, and that was my life vest.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah.
That was good to me.
Oh, man. I'm telling you. So what's up, guys?
Just hanging out.
What are you doing, Ty?
Just bebopping.
Amen. Amen. Well, welcome back to the podcast, The Arena. And we had so many people reach out to us the past couple weeks on our guest that we had. And I was the Lone Ranger last week. Me and Brother Kevin Vickers had a mutual friend, Brother Roland Edwards, come over and give his testimony. And so that, of course, went amazing. And I encourage each and every one of you, if you haven't listened to that episode yet, go back and listen to Brother Roland Edwards' testimony. So thank you so much, friend, for coming down and really went off the beaten path. He was in Savannah, but drove 2.5 hours into the woods to come give his testimony, and I absolutely love it. I really do. Even the Phillips, a couple weeks ago, they were like, look, we're on vacation, but we want to come on in person and tell what the Lord has done. And they even admitted, they're like, I think our daughters really put us up to this, but they were willing. And you know what? Now it's going to be forever recorded and in the record books for the Phillips family to hear of the miracle that was done in their life. And even Brother Roland and his family can go back and listen to what God has done, is doing, and will do in his life. So that's what this podcast has always been about. This episode is titled, Can We Not Agree to Disagree? And so we know that is what we wanted to talk about. But whenever I say that title, what comes to your mind, guys?
Politics.
Politics? Mm-hmm. What kind of politics? Any?
Yeah. The divisive kind.
Yeah.
What comes to my mind is just
Tell us more, Josh.
I'll be honest with you. Not a lot's coming to my mind right now.
We agree.
But I would just say simple stuff. I mean, just everyday stuff that we all we can blow out of proportion and make it so big that it's
that you end friendships over.
Yeah,
that sounds silly, but people fall out over nothing.
Over
all
the dumbest
they
mess.
just want themselves to be right, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's a human emotion. People are offended, myself included, about all kind of things.
By some thoughtless word or deed.
Amen. But just because you're offended doesn't mean that you have the right to destroy the offender.
Okay. So politics, everyday stuff, like you said, Josh, just petty things that we could disagree on. I mean, you can find anything in the world to disagree about.
yeah.
Anything. It's
I mean, like, you think your shirt looks good, and
We disagree.
I just
Are you kidding me right now? Josh,
I like your hat better than I like your shirt.
I like my shirt better than I like all of you.
I like your shoes the best.
This is a perfect opportunity. That's a great example of agreeing to disagree, because my wife hates this shirt as well. But I love it, and I'm going to wear it every chance I can. And so that's why it's on me right now. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to give you a story that happened to me, and I'm going to ask if you think I was right or the person in this story was right. And I'm going to give you all the details. You tell me. And we might have a difference of opinion. Oh, I can't remember the year. I'm a 9th grader or a sophomore. I cannot remember when I dropped out. That's part of my testimony. And my geometry teacher, I cannot remember her name. She was Korean, and she had very broken English. That's probably why I wasn't doing good in class,
Probably not.
and among other things.
We disagree.
Previous drug use. And
Current drug use.
and she knew she had it out for me, okay? So it's the end of the school year, and I was handed a Scantron sheet with my number 2 pencil, and she was walking around handing out the test packets. Before she got to my desk, she handed me my Scantron sheet. She said, "I'll be back with your test packet." And I looked at her and I said, "Miss So-and-so," I said, "in all reality, if I make 100 on this test, can I still pass for the year?" She looked at me, Ryan, and she says, "Mr. Bella, you take this test twice and make 100 both times. You still fail." And I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah, no way you can pass." I had that Scantron sheet in my hand and literally just started filling in the bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
All the answers. She come back with the test packet,
And you
and I
handed her the
said,
Scantron.
"Here's my Scantron sheet." She was livid, and she said, "Go to gym." Because whenever you got done early, you had to go to the gym.
Uh-huh.
And I literally played basketball the entire day.
Yeah.
Okay? I want to ask you, gentlemen, was that a good choice or a bad choice?
Probably a bad choice, but you had made a lot of bad choices up to that point.
Well, once you get to the point that you can't pass anyways.
I mean, I understand your point, and it's totally
that's like a
see
nice
your point.
cherry on top of bad choices.
Really?
Yeah.
So you would say that's a
Yeah,
terrible idea?
absolutely.
I would do the same thing. If I could not pass, there was no,
I
feel like
believe you.
I feel like
I
I
believe
would.
you.
Well,
If there's no hope of
Yeah,
passing.
you have no option at that point. Yeah.
So do you think I went out like a winner?
Um,
Well, let me explain to you why I think.
Gangster.
Well, let me
Like
explain
a
to you
retard, what the teacher thought.
exactly
like a drug addict.
like I was. Well, let me explain to you guys something. I actually, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
I think that was the greatest decision I ever made in my academic career, and I'll explain.
Please do.
I'm in Fitzgerald, Georgia. Several years later.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a high school dropout with not much of a future.
No longer a drug addict.
No longer a drug addict, saved by the grace of God. But that jump shot that I perfected in that gym that day, I was
Legendary.
playing
Goated.
Legendary is correct. I was playing basketball with my future boss and his son at the time, and I happened to be on their team, and my skills were off the charts amazing. I get a random phone call the very next day, and it's my future boss. Introduces himself, and he says, "My name's Robbie Guthrie." I said, "How are you doing, Mr. Guthrie?" Didn't know him from Adam's House Cat. And he said these words: "Playing ball with you this weekend, I really like the way you share the ball. You're a team player, and I just really, really like the way you play basketball. And I wanted to talk about maybe hiring you for the car lot." So to my geometry teacher, failing your class was the greatest decision that I have ever made in my life. And going to play and get on my jump shot was a good decision. Now, some of you might say, I disagree. Well, guess what, folks? We can agree to disagree. Okay? Why can we not, in our society, why can we not agree to disagree?
Because we want to be right so bad.
That we want everyone else to know that we're right.
So we hear that phrase, right? Well, we can just agree to disagree. That's literally you telling them, okay, shut up about it. I don't want to talk to you about it anymore, and we don't agree at all. That's not really agreeing.
That's just a conversation ender.
Yeah.
And never to bring it up again, and probably
And
your conversation's limited in the future with those people.
and no unity can happen if you just refuse to talk to one another, no matter what the subject is.
How does that spill over in the church?
Like a waterfall.
It does.
It makes it hard to pray for other people. That
Really? I've never thought of it that way. Why would it be hard to pray for
say
them?
more about that.
because you have that connection split. You say, well, I didn't really, in my opinion, I didn't really connect that way, and it feels like our relationship kind of split and ended there.
In that, is it hard for you to pray for someone that you disagree with on a certain subject?
On certain subjects, yeah.
Okay.
And I understand that. Like somebody who you think is completely wrong. You don't.
It's hard to pray about them because that's the only thing you're thinking about.
All you think is they're not doing right, or they're whatever your opinion is different from theirs, and yours is the only one that's right.
So regardless,
there's
Are you saying you're guilty of that mindset?
Oh, 100%.
I think 100%
Yeah, I mean,
everyone's guilty
I'm
of
not
that.
going to say I'm sitting there just every service, but I'm just saying like I would 100% say that's happened. I mean, just like
like,
I don't
there's,
agree with them.
There's somebody in mind that something's come up probably multiple times, and we just don't disagree on something. But every time I see them, that's the first thing I think about is how many times we disagreed and kind of, I don't not necessarily combated each other.
Clashed.
Yeah, and every time I see them, that's the first thing I think about.
See, my personality, first of all, I'm petrified of bitterness in my
Really?
heart.
Dude, that's a good fear.
I am petrified of it. So I do not want to be bitter, period. So I can look, me personally, I may disagree with you 100% on a certain thing, but I can look past that to find the common ground and get past it. I have prayed for people that I totally disagreed with, but I still love them and I still want them to go to heaven.
Has it always been that easy to always see past it?
I would say that that's a trait that I have possessed for the majority of my life. I can't remember when it wasn't the case, but it's something that I feed too. I mean, it's not that I don't ever have a reason to be mad or bitter even. Not that there's ever a good reason to be bitter, but I just strive to keep my heart.
Keep the peace.
Yeah, I'm a peacekeeper.
Mm-hmm. It's impossible to get things done politically in our nation when we are on such polar opposite sides of the spectrum.
Well, whether it's in politics or in the church or in your job, when you're viewing the person who has a different opinion than you do as the absolute enemy, you're not going to find much.
And that's the issue. That's the issue that I find in the church. That if you watch, we literally mirror politics. We really do. And I think it started long before I was born, but where I saw it in my life, where I saw it really take shape and form was in 2016 when Trump was running. It seemed like the church has always been political.
The church is much more political.
It is extremely political
since 2016 than it's ever been.
And now
before,
instead of
in my remembrance,
exactly. And now instead of looking at the devil is the enemy who we're fighting, if we find one little thing that we don't agree with each other on, we've immediately made it a heaven or hell issue.
yeah, and we shouldn't do that.
No.
I mean, we know that we.
Well, number
shouldn't,
one,
but
we don't have that luxury.
no.
In my opinion, we don't have the luxury to change the Bible and say, well, now this is going to be a heaven or hell issue. And hey, this is the way I was raised my whole life. Well, if you were raised this way your whole life and it's not a heaven or hell issue, you were wrong your whole life, you know? Or if I was raised a sinner my whole life, I'm still a sinner. You're in need of the blood.
Yeah.
You know, but we make everything absolutes in our lives. If it's not this way or that way, and we forget that God really cherishes diversity. You know, if he wanted us all speaking the same thing and doing the same thing, and you know, I know the Bible talks about, you know, we speak the same thing, but I'm talking about if he wanted us all to be robots.
Praise the same way.
Exactly.
Have this exact same gifts.
The same expressions, the same songs, the same sermons and stuff like that, then why would he have destroyed the Tower of Babel? And I know we can get in the whole scriptural thing on that and say, well, they were actually trying to get up to God and all this, but what he did, his solution to that was bring diversity. You know, don't let them talk the same. Let it challenge them, you know. And I find a diverse church is a strong church. You know, you see people in that church that maybe, for instance, look at this group right here.
Yeah.
Look at this the group of compadres right here. Us four. You know, we just got your testimony in the books, both of y'all. Your testimony, Ty, is a miracle. Josh, yours is as well. You two are like brothers, best friends, and you literally come from polar opposites, and really had God had nothing to do with your life and yours, you'd have never met each other.
That's right.
And same thing with me and Ryan.
Yeah.
You know, he had, you know, I'm not going to give your testimony, but you had very unfortunate circumstances that were out of your control in your life.
Sure.
But you had a determination to stay with the Lord.
Yeah.
And me, back in geometry, failing and playing basketball, I mean, and doing a lot of other horrible stuff like drugs. Yeah, if God's not in the equation, then we don't have this fellowship that we have right here between us four.
And on your point of diversity doesn't necessarily mean a lack of unity, because without unity, we're in deep trouble.
I think if you do have that wide diversity of people, say you do have a new convert or somebody come in as a visitor, they're not going to feel as out of place, in my opinion, because you have the entire church thinking the exact same way, looking the exact same way. They're going to feel even more out of place.
Yeah.
Well, and to your point, you know, a new convert comes in. There are certain things that I have struggled with in life since I've been a Christian that I questioned why. You know, it was unfortunate. You know, I didn't enjoy it at all. But as an adult and dealing with you two morons,
Love you.
Yeah, love you too. If me going through some of that helps me to help you, it's totally worth it. You know, it was miserable. It's still miserable. Even thinking about it's miserable. But if it helps me help you, it's totally worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, to your point, if you've got a wide, diverse group of Christians with different testimonies, when a new convert comes in, more than likely someone in
He's
that
going to be able to relate to
is
him.
going to be able to relate and help that person
For sure.
navigate some of those struggles.
I mean, like Brother Jody,
Yeah.
he relates to me and his testimony and
sure.
his upbringing a lot more than probably some other people, and so that's why it's been able for me to relate to him and see some of the things that he struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
Me have the same things struggled with as well.
And that helps you when he tells you,
You're going to make it.
Do this or don't do this, or, you know, just hang on. You're going to make it through. It says, hey, he really knows what I'm going through.
Yeah.
He's not only my pastor, he's lived through this before me.
Absolutely. And so we lean on each other. And guess what? You and your pastor are not always going to agree. Ryan went through something that was somewhat similar, but not really. You can see commonalities in it, but really it was different. He and I aren't always going to agree on something. But when you isolate yourself, and I'm going to use a word that is so, it's despised in so many churches, but it's not a bad word. It can be a bad word, but it's not a bad word. But if we're not careful, we will isolate ourselves so much where people, like you just mentioned, won't be able to help us because we aren't willing to compromise.
That's a dirty word.
It's a terrible word to so many because it's been preached that way,
Yeah.
but it's not always a bad word.
Well, it's politics included. I mean, that you watch any political documentary,
Compromise is losing.
or listen,
That's how you feel.
yeah, or listen to anyone who's in Congress today, and have been for 30 or 40 years. They say, man, compromise, you get voted out if you even think about it. So that's why nothing gets done in Washington.
Right. Because politically, everything is an absolute.
Yeah.
Everything's
Yeah.
an absolute.
Yeah.
You can't have it all your way. So you have these two parties in our political system that have the majority of the power, and the amount of energy that they are. It's like the two ends of a magnet. It's like they cannot come together because there's so much energy pulling them apart. And what's really sad, though, is allowing it to funnel into the church, and really all of us are guilty of it. Even myself, I'm guilty of it, where it's like you can't see past something that you just don't agree with. If it is sin, if it is a sinful thing, that is a completely different issue.
Right.
But culturally, so whenever I got saved and I was going to Oklahoma, there were things in those churches that you did not do, okay? And I think this is for everyone, not just the Pentecostal holiness movement, but this is for each and every type of denomination. You have this because where churches are, you got to have some form of structure, and where structure is, there's power, and where power is, there's people. And people are born with different opinions.
People.
And it all comes down to the same thing, Ryan. You just said it.
People.
That's exactly right. So when I'm in Oklahoma, you can't do this, can't do that. But then I move out to Georgia. Can't say this, can't say that. I move out here. Yeah, we do that. We go here, we do that, and we say that. But then you guys were taught not to do some things that they did.
Right.
And so as a young person, especially with my background as a professional basketball player, coming in to the holiness movement, I'm so conflicted. Like, okay, so I can do this here. I can't do that here. I remember, this is a really funny story because this will tell you how stupid I was. Brother Joe Dotson, he was a great mentor to me when I first got saved. He preached for the old St. Paul Church, and he came down here years ago. Well, he was going to Blanchard, and they took his driver's license, I think, or maybe it was his kids. But he called me on my cell phone. He said,
They took his license, or they took his kid.
No, I think his kids took his license.
Oh,
That's what I knew. That's what you were trying to say. But
No, he was a character. I absolutely loved Brother Joe Dotson. He was a godly man. Well, he calls me and he says, and I'm not going to say the name of this church, but he says, Brother Andrew. And I always told him, I said, Brother Joe, if you want to go preach somewhere, let me know and I will take you. And so one of his grandsons and me were friends. He said, I got to go preach down at such and such church. It was a strict one. I didn't know. I had no idea. I was like, oh, okay. Well, if you know how to get there, we'll drive. So me and his grandson got in the car and went, and we pulled up, and it was like something out of like Sleepy Hollow. Like you're out there in the middle of nowhere, and I'm not making fun of them, but like everybody had, homemade dresses and stuff like that. And the reason why I'm saying I'm not making fun of them, because I have friends that have that lifestyle. But as somebody who didn't know nothing, had no clue about holiness or whatever, I'm like, this was a shock. I literally thought we were at an Amish church because I had never seen anything like this. So anyways, we walk into the church, and Brother Joe introduces me to the pastor. I can't even think of his name. And literally, I'm saved for like maybe 6 months at this time. So I'm clean enough now. I get a little bit of the gist of, you shave and wear your long sleeves and stuff like that. No offense, Ty. No offense to me. And so I shake the pastor's hand, and Brother Joe Dotson announced me to the pastor like this. He said, "This is Lendell Birdsong's nephew." And of course, my uncle is, a pretty popular preacher out there and elsewhere. And the guy looked at me and he went, "Wow." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he says, "Well, do you preach?" And Josh, I looked at him and I said, "Well, I've never done it, but I can try." Dude, that guy looked at me like I had just cussed. He was like, "Okay." Never called on me, didn't even acknowledge me in the
He
service.
was terrified.
He was extremely terrified. He was one of those I would say could not agree to disagree. He was like, "That's not how we structure. That's not how we do it." But I'll never forget that because I'm ignorant. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know? And it's just funny to me how we get such in a structure, right? Where we cannot see past the way we've always done things.
Our isms and schisms.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
Do you think that's why older generations can't seem to be a little bit harder?
For sure.
Like they're set in their ways.
Yeah.
They don't want to compromise.
Whether they're in church or not.
Yeah.
They're just
So I'm glad you mentioned that. You notice it in the older generation. How does that affect you as younger guys coming up? It's got to affect you in some way, right?
So there are certain things that I know the church aren't really too fond about. I wasn't in the choir at this point, but I was there for practice, and me and another good buddy of mine and Josh, actually his cousin, me and him were playing cards just in the pew, just kind of bebopping around
What kind of cards?
playing cards.
Like, I know, but what game?
I don't know, probably Tunk, just goofing off.
Okay.
Texas Hold'em
No, I'm not
in the church house.
Yeah, but it was just in the
Strong
church.
word.
Poker.
And Uncle Fred walked up and said, "Put the cards away now."
Really?
Mm-hmm. And I didn't combat him because I knew
Rightly so.
I knew that's one of those things he wouldn't be able to agree to disagree, and I didn't feel like arguing with him.
Yeah.
So I just at that moment I knew, okay. So that's one thing that I didn't see a problem with, but him and one of the I guess culture things and rules
Yeah.
of the church, he just didn't really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you did the right thing by respecting
Yes,
your
you
elder.
And while we're on the topic of Fred, and backing up to your ism and schism thing, Fred used to talk about back in the day, everybody over here, and then there was a separate group of fellowshipping Christians not too far from here. And all of them were against all of us because we grew tobacco. But we were against them because they watered their crops on Sunday. So, not that I agree with either one, but
Right.
it's just,
You can find something to fall out with somebody about.
well, it's just like what we've always said. If you're looking for bad, it don't matter who you're
Yes.
looking at. It don't matter who you're looking at. You're going to find it.
Yes.
But if you're looking for good, it doesn't matter who you're looking at. You're going to find good. It just depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah. You're right.
Now, Josh, what was the question?
Well, a lot of times, like you can feel like, you feel like that.
You feel like you're misunderstood, I would think.
You feel like, what about me? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like,
Where do I fit into this group?
yeah. I
You
mean,
know?
I'm just following in your mold, and I'm not saying it's wrong to follow after people, but it's
I
like
think you should.
it's like things are different.
But if I'm slightly wrong in any way,
Yeah, if I do anything, if I think a little different, do anything different, I'm wrong, and you become an outcast. So it's like, man,
Yeah, I don't think that's the right way for, as we're only getting older. So there's something that we're going to have to be mindful of.
I honestly, I want to pin roses on myself because I never do that. I really think that I don't have, like you said, there's some things like you guard against bitterness or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that I really try to keep an open mind. I really do.
Yeah.
And like, Josh, you and I aren't always going to agree on everything. But is that going to change my love and appreciation for
No.
you, vice versa? No. And I think that is where we have to get to. Can we really and honestly, truly agree to disagree? There are people right now in my life who I love dearly. Do I agree with everything that they do? No. But I don't focus on that. I
Right.
focus on what we can accomplish together. And you're not gonna accomplish anything for the kingdom of God if all you're focused on is the things that you don't agree with.
Exactly.
And if it's so bad that you make it a heaven or hell issue when it's not, then
issues with you.
the issues with you.
I'm going to say I've been pretty guilty of that. Been blinded by the whole subject right then or what's going on, that I can't see that it won't matter in a year. It won't matter in 10 years. It won't matter through eternity.
That's a good test to put on everything, and you've brought this up before.
I have, Brother Chris Bussum, and he passed away, and my heart goes out to his family, but that man made such an impact on my life. That was one of the testimonies that he said when I was young. I was 18 years old when I got saved, and I remember listening to his testimonies, and one service he stood up and he was talking about him and his brother getting in an argument, and his dad stopping both of them, and they were just going at it back and forth, and their dad said, son, stop. He said, I want you guys to go to your room, and only will I let you come out of your rooms until you figured out if what you two are arguing about is going to pass the 100-year test. Mm-hmm. And it stopped Chris and his brother long enough where he looked at his dad and went, Dad, you know what? Nothing's going to pass the 100-year test.
No.
Other than my love for my brother and my relationship with Jesus Christ. That's the only thing that's going to pass the 100-year test. Follow peace with all men. You know, we really hang on the word holiness. No man shall see the Lord without holiness. But that first part of that verse says, follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no one will see the Lord. You can't have part of that verse. You got to have the whole verse. You know, we're striving to be holy people. I really believe that we are. But in doing that, my holiness is not defined on the way you look at me. My holiness is defined on how I measure up to God, what He wants in my life. And so many times I feel like if we're not careful, even if I'm listening to this YouTube video or listening to the audio from this podcast, if something starts rising up in me that says, no, they're compromising, I can hear it, they're pushing an agenda or this or that, if that's rising up in you, that's automatically letting you know that you cannot agree to disagree. Because there are people right now in my life that I love dearly, and my love for them has never changed, but we will never see eye to eye on everything. As far as I know, my brother is still and he won't mind me sharing this on the podcast, and he has actually donated to us.
Yes, he has.
And I appreciate it. But as far as I know, he is a professed atheist. He does not believe in the existence of God, or has not found enough evidence, is what he says, to believe that there actually is a God. I love my brother.
Sure you do.
He's dead wrong.
Yeah.
And he thinks I'm wrong. But are we going to have a falling out with one another? Absolutely not. Because guess what? How are you going to reach?
If he ever needs
If you're right, how are you ever going to reach him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something
if
happens.
If you
No, it's fine.
if you like, treat him like you're wrong and
You're dead to me.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Then it's just gonna make it worse.
Yeah.
Brother, I need you. But we had a falling out 10 years ago. I feel like I can't reach out to you.
Yeah.
What could have been salvation in his heart was a broken relationship.
Yeah.
For sure.
Just because you disagreed.
Yeah. Most of the stuff that we fall out over doesn't pass the 6-month test, much less the 100-year test. I do think that that's a great idea to put everything into that perspective. Does this really matter? Is it worth losing a friendship over? Is it worth losing confidence in my brethren?
Is it worth losing your soul
Amen.
over?
No.
No.
There's 4 men in this room. Well, 2 men and 2 boys. And we don't agree.
I don't agree with that statement.
Well, we can agree to
I'm a
disagree.
soldier.
My point
Soldier
exactly.
Nation.
None of us agree on everything. Me and Brother Andrew don't agree on everything. Guess what? There's some things we just don't talk about, and that's okay. But I love each one of y'all. I would do whatever it took. If you needed me, I'd do whatever it took to do whatever you needed me to do, because I want all of us to go to heaven.
That's exactly
And
right.
that's what every Christian in the world should think like that. Not that I'm
Amen.
right, but that statement is right.
Amen. Amen. And if you feel, and I'm talking off, of course, to the audience, but I'm really talking to you guys too. If you feel like you can't express the way you truly feel, really take inventory on the relationships of your life. If you can't be yourself and express what is really inside, what kind of valuable relationship do you really have? What does the Bible say? That out of the abundance of the heart,
I'll speak.
the mouth speaketh. If you're sugarcoating what your heart really feels, what kind of man or woman are you that you can't speak your mind? I don't want to ever get to the place or have a relationship in my life where I look around and go, I can't be like that around them. I can't be that. I don't want to be a chameleon when it comes to people.
I can't be myself around a certain group of people.
And you change yourself to match or to fit in with those people. That's not what Jesus did. If Jesus wanted us to do that, if he wanted us to pattern our lives after that, he would have fit in with the scribes, the Pharisees, and the Sadducees. But he went against the grain and said, no, I'm doing things the way my Father sent me to do. And like I've said in a lot of episodes before, and I've said this to you guys in Sunday school many times, when Jesus saves you, he gets the sin out. That's what separates you from him. He gets the sin out and the sin nature. But he knew who he created. You are totally different than the person sitting next to you. You're totally different than the people that you work with, and even your family. I have 3 children, so does Ryan. All 3 of them are completely different.
Yes.
Why? Because God likes diversity. He likes people to be different. And within that diversity, you're going to be able to help people that I'll never be able to help. Josh, you're going to be able to help people that Ryan's never going to be able to touch. But if we can't get along, we can't help anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone.
And that's exactly what the devil wants us to do. He wants us to focus on our differences and not our love for one another. All of us are just striving to make it to heaven. We're trying to skip as many speed bumps in the road trying to get there. Let's not get bogged down in things that really don't matter. And when you see your friend bogged down in something, get in there and help him out. Get him out of the mud hole, and let's go to heaven together.
Well, did you like today's episode? Well, we'll just have to agree to disagree.
We love you. We hope you have a great week. Over and under.